Welcome to our lesson in Practical Research 2 Module 7. We will be discussing about writing hypothesis and review of related literature. This week learning targets are the following. At the end of the lesson, I can 1. Differentiate alternative and null hypothesis. 2. Select relevant literatures for the review of related literature of a study. What is a hypothesis? According to Frankel and Wallen, a hypothesis is a prediction of the possible outcomes of a study. Creswell defined hypotheses as statements in quantitative research in which the investigator makes a prediction or a conjecture about the outcome of a relationship among attributes or characteristics. When do we use a hypothesis? Your immediate answer to use a hypothesis when you are not testing a theory. However, remember that our definition of theory is very broad, an idea about how things relate to each other. If you have an expectation of how your research question will be answered or the outcome, then it is fair to say you have a theory in mind. If you ask of your research question what is the expected outcome, and have an answer, you can ask why. What is my thinking behind this prediction? This is essentially the theory that you will be testing. If you are not able to predict the answer to your question, then your approach is not one of theory testing and you should not proceed with developing hypotheses to test. Your research questions remain as such. This will be the case if your research is descriptive or exploratory in nature. What is a good hypothesis? There are two criteria for good hypothesis. 1. Hypotheses are statements about relationships between variables. The relationship between variables must be explicitly stated. 2. Hypotheses carry clear implications for testing the stated relationships. The readers must understand why there is a need to test the said relationship upon reading the study's hypothesis. These criteria mean that hypothesis statements contain two or more variables that are measurable or potentially measurable and that they specify how the variables are related. What is a null hypothesis? A null hypothesis describes an outcome that is the opposite of the research hypothesis. The original speculation is not supported. Usually, this is expressed through a negation of the statement. Example: there is no significant difference in groups, or more generally, that there is no association between two groups. What is an alternative hypothesis? Alternative hypothesis is the research hypothesis. It is the scientist's speculation/prediction at the heart of the experiment. Take a look at the following examples. Statement of the problem: what is the IQ of the children after they eat oily fish for a period of time? HO, or null hypothesis: children who eat oily fish for 6 months do not show an increase in IQ when compared to children who have not. HA, or alternative hypothesis: children who eat oily fish for 6 months show an increase in IQ when compared to children who have not. Example 2. Statement of the problem: is there a significant relationship between the grade 11 student respondents' availability of internet connection at home and their average sleeping time? HO, or null hypothesis: there is no significant relationship between the grade 11 student respondents' availability of internet connection at home and their average sleeping time. HA, or alternative hypothesis: there is a significant relationship between the grade 11 student respondents' availability of internet connection at home and their average sleeping time. Let's see if you understood the lesson. While an alternative hypothesis expresses the researcher's stand or prediction of the study's outcome, A null hypothesis is a statement that negates or contradicts the said prediction. Moving forward to our next topic. The review of related literature. What is a review of related literature? Comprehensive summary of previous research on a topic. The literature review surveys scholarly articles, books, and other sources relevant to a particular area of research. The review should enumerate, describe, summarize, objectively evaluate, and clarify this previous research. It should give a theoretical base for the research and help you, the author, determine the nature of your research. The literature review acknowledges the work of previous researchers, and in so doing, assures the reader that your work has been well conceived. It is assumed that by mentioning a previous work in the field of study, that the author has read, evaluated, and assimilated that work into the work at hand. Furthermore, a literature review creates a landscape for the reader, giving her or him a full understanding of the developments in the field. This landscape informs the reader that the author has indeed assimilated all, or the vast majority of previous, significant works in the field into her or his research. In general, the literature review should provide a context for the research, identify seminal works and scholars in the field, acknowledge existing theories, points of view, hypotheses, etc. in the field of research, justify the research, clear up misconceptions about previous research, ensure the research has not been done before, or if it is repeated, that it is marked as a replication study. Show where the research fits into the existing body of knowledge. Enable the researcher to learn from previous theory on the subject. Illustrate how the subject has been previously studied. Highlight flaws in previous research. Outline gaps in previous research. Show that the work is adding to the understanding and knowledge of the field. Help refine the topic, refocus the topic, or even contribute to the topic's evolution. The following are the steps in conducting a literature review. Step 1. Choose a topic. Define your research question. Your literature review should be guided by a central research question. Remember, it is not a collection of loosely related studies in a field but instead represents background and research developments related to a specific research question, interpreted and analyzed by you in a synthesized way. Some helpful tips. Make sure your research question is not too broad or too narrow. Is it manageable? Begin writing down terms that are related to your question. These will be useful for searches later. If you have the opportunity, discuss your topic with your professor. Step 2. Decide on the scope of your review. How many studies do you need to look at? How comprehensive should it be? How many years should it cover? Tip: this may depend on your assignment. How many sources does the assignment require? Step 3. Select the databases you will use to conduct your searches. There are many comprehensive databases available such as *WorldCat. WorldCat is an online library catalog that lets you look up books, dissertations, microform, journals, and multimedia items in libraries around the world. Website: http://www.worldcat.org. *ProQuest databases. *Google Scholar. *Find databases via research guides. *Librarians can also give you invaluable advice in your search. Make use of their expertise. Step 4. Conduct your searches and find the literature. Keep track of your searches. Review the abstracts of research studies carefully. This will save you time. Write down the searches you conduct in each database so that you may duplicate them if you need to later. Use the bibliographies and references of research studies you find to locate others. Ask your professor or a scholar in the field if you are missing any key works in the field. Step 5. Review the literature. Some questions to help you analyze the research. What was the research question of the study you are reviewing? What were the authors trying to discover? Was the research funded by a source that could influence the findings? What were the research methodologies? Analyze its literature review, the samples and variables used, the results, and the conclusions. Does the research seem to be complete? Could it have been conducted more soundly? What further questions does it raise? If there are conflicting studies, why do you think that is? How are the authors viewed in the field? Has this study been cited? If so, how has it been analyzed? Tips. Again, review the abstracts carefully. Keep careful notes so that you may track your thought processes during the research process. After the tedious process of reviewing and selecting literature, this is one of the most common ways. There's a question of how will I present them in a logical and interesting manner that will entice my reader to finish the chapter. Organize it in stages of how the topic has selecting the right one. The first definitions there are several ways in organizing a literature review as researchers talked about it, then how it is thought about today. Too broad to specific. Another approach is to start with a section on the general type of issue you're reviewing, then narrow down to increasingly specific issues in the literature until you reach the articles that are most specifically similar to your research question, thesis statement, hypothesis, or proposal. This can be a good way to introduce a lot of background and related facets of your topic when there is not much directly on your topic but you are tying together many related, broader articles. 3 major models or major theories. When there are multiple models or prominent theories, it is a good idea to outline the theories or models that are applied the most in your articles. That way you can group the articles you read by the theoretical framework that each prefers, to get a good overview of the prominent approaches to your concept. 4 prominent authors. If a certain researcher started a field, and there are several famous people who developed it more, a good approach can be grouping the famous authors/researchers and what each is known to have said about the topic. You can then organize other authors into groups by which famous authors' ideas they are following. With this organization it can help to look at the citations your articles list in them, to see if there is one author that appears over and over. 5 contrasting schools of thought. If a dominant argument comes up in your research, with researchers taking 2 sides and talking about how the other is wrong, you may want to group your literature review by those schools of thought and contrast the differences in their approaches and ideas. Thank you for watching.